On Thursday, June 8th, a number of Iranian-American activists and analysts and non-Iranian supporters gathered in Congress for a forum organized by Republican Congressman from Pennsylvania, Representative Patrick Meehan. The speakers spoke on various topics such as 1. The needs of Iranian society and how the Iranian-American community can help affect those needs. 2. The requests made to the U.S. government by the Iranian-American community in exerting pressure on the Islamic regime with a special emphasis on the U.S. abandoning what is now clear as fruitless attempts at normalization of relations or détente with Tehran's regime. 3. Issues that can put Iran and the Iranian people in direct danger. 4th, and finally, calling on the Broadcasting Board of Governors, or BBG, to diligently and regularly scrutinize the programming, production, and personnel practices at both Voice of America and Radio Farda, as the U.S. taxpayer-funded media outlets should not be a source of appeasement of the Islamic regime.
My name is Farman Kalaye. I'm a resident of state of Pennsylvania. And I'm grateful to Congressman Patrick Meehan and his staff for affording us this opportunity to be in the sacred chambers where a nation was born in pursuit of happiness and liberty. We are here as the sons of daughters of Cyrus the Great, whose contribution, a single contribution to the civilization, was granting liberty to the people who deserved it. And we are here to also not only to find our own identity as a nation, but also in search of our allied and people who can help us to find liberty and help us in our struggle to establish a secular and democratic society in Iran. And in that regard, we basically created this grassroots movement of very independent individuals who really are true leaders, people who made it, flew from 3,000 miles to be here, like Dr. Amir Fصیحی, and Mr. Azizan, who drove 9 hours to be here. We are very grateful, Mr. Sina Dabestani, to be here for your time, and Pastor Saeed Abidini, who will be one of our keynote speakers. It is truly an honor and historical event, although they say small step for a man, but a giant step for mankind. Maybe this is a tiny little step and early infancy part of a process where we can find the true leaders of Iranian opposition, and where which can give us some guidelines, inspire a nation to find its own DNA.
My message today about hope is what we are doing here. It's very important. It's so encouraging. I have been encouraged a lot, and I'm here. I drove, all the way here first to say thank you, and God bless you. So the second message that I have, I was thinking that if I want to start about talking about God, maybe some people they don't believe God here. That's not a big problem. God doesn't hate you if you don't believe Him. So I was thinking that what is the common thing in Bible that can make all of us together united? And Mr. Farman started with that word in Bible without knowing it. And this word is King Cyrus. It's not God. King Cyrus among Iranian is a person that all Iranian respect him a lot. All religion, Christian, it's so many times King Cyrus in his Bible. Old Testament, New Testament, they talked about it. And then all the activities, this is our history, this is our culture. And King Cyrus was the first person, I always, when I see some pastors and congressmen and senators, I told them, I'm proud because we as Iran were the first country that we gave the freedom of speech and freedom of religion. We are not talking about religion. Religion brings division. Religion, we believe as a Christian, evangelical Christian, we believe religion kills. Religion is not from God. We hate religion, any religion. Islam, Christianity, any other religion. We are talking, and the message of Bible is about hope, it's about love, and it's about faith. These three things can change the community, can change the country, can change the environment. So this is the common thing that we need to focus on it. And if we focus on it and we see the positive thing about each other, then we can build a community that we never had it before.
Iran has emerged as the gross violator of human rights, number one in the world in conducting executions. Iran has been recognized as an accomplice to the Syrian genocide and perpetrator of terrorist acts. It's recognized by the US State Department as the number one state sponsor of terrorism. Iran is a persecutor of its own people, denying economic mobility to its citizens, and it's ranked among the top 10 in the Misery Index by Cato Institute, where a reported 20% of the population lives below poverty line, despite lifting of the sanctions and the flow of money into the country. Let's look into the human rights issues a little further, because they cannot be denied. Iran ranks in the bottom quartile of the freedom of press and electoral process by the Freedom House. According to US News, Iran is the lowest ranking place to live for women. That's usnews.com from 2017. For women, the legal age for marriage has been dropped to 13 for girls and 15 for boys, allowing 40,000 girls to get married under the age of 15 every year. This is verified by UNICEF in year 2016. And in some cases, even girls as young as 9 are allowed to get married with consent of a judge or their father. Consent of the judge or their father. FGM, contrary to what's being said, is still practiced in some regions of Iran. For example, in Kermanshah, reportedly over 50% of the girls have been circumcised. These are issues that we must address beyond the popular issue of hijab, which is equally important. But these atrocities are still happening in Iran every day, and the women of Iran have to deal with them. I have asked my friends in Iran and beyond for some suggestions, and I would like to share them with you. Number one, invest in US-based grassroots advocacy and engagement efforts that empower the opposition movement in Iran and offers full transparency with compliance to US rules and regulations. Number two, ensure that US-funded Persian language media, such as Voice of America, Radio Farda, etc., are representing the best interest of US citizens and the people of Iran, not their government. Invest in new media outlets run by grassroots activists and reporters who are American by choice. Many of you are here today. And we can compile a full list. Number three, invest in high-speed, unlimited satellite internet to enable opposition activists to communicate and to mobilize without government hacking and crackdown. As you know, such communication is burdensome, it's dangerous, and it's costly. Number four, engage with Iranian-Americans with a commitment to national security to explore travel and immigration policies that protect U.S. interests and borders. Number five, create new lines of communications with Iranian-American leaders who are previously marginalized by other administrations. Number six, continue humanitarian aid to Iran with assurance that the funds are dutifully allocated to those in need. In absence of government transparency, communicate the above mentioned, communicate with the above mentioned organizations when the funds are denied and they are not trickled down to the people who need them most. Number 7, consider investment and trade regulations that hold Iranian government accountable. Number 8, regulate and monitor funding provided by US-based nonprofit and lobbying organizations to avoid foreign influence. Number 9, resist the international community's urge and pressure others to not open an Iranian embassy in the US. Lastly, support programs like today that don't just support a reform movement, but encourage regime change and true democracy in Iran.
There are many refugees coming here using I-94 visa that is specific for them, refugees, and then after 1 year that they get their green card, they miss their mothers, their father, their brother, their sister. It looks like that me or Mr. Kosar or Miss Marjan, we do not have brothers, sisters. We just grown up automatically by ourselves, right? We don't miss nobody, right? They go back. They are being used by the look what happens here. There's a national security issue. There's a national security issue. Don't look at it simple. They go there, they say to the Secret Service of Iranian, oh, we gathered a lot of information about the opposition. Oh, I saw Kosar, yeah. Even they say, for example, we saw Mr. Chalanji, we saw Mr. Sina Dabestani. Even they tell them what kind of, for example, cigarette Mr. Sina Dabestani smokes. And then when they come here, they say to the FBI, hey, we're going to bring you. You see, they are doing, this is a national, this should be stopped in the new administration.
Gene Sharp, another great contributor to the study of nonviolence in the 20th century, reminds us that it is not enough to go up against the guns and tanks of an authoritarian regime with ethics and morals alone. He tells us that these regimes rule as long as they have the obedience of the population. Thus, empowering the people of Iran to disobey is the most important challenge in overcoming the Islamic Republic. Monthly Iranian celebrations of Niki, banned or barely allowed under the Islamic Republic, are forms of disobedience in Iran. The ancient monthly celebrations of Iran, together with celebrations of Iranian heroes, scholars, and poets, can help empower the population for them to find the courage to disobey, while ensuring that the disobedience of the population has the ethics of nonviolence required to reach truth and love. While using Iranian celebrations as tools, we must also be constantly cognizant that we are not only dealing with a political problem in Iran, but also tremendous psychological, social, and cultural issues which also need addressing. Psychologically, nearly every Iranian has experienced fear, terror, and trauma in their lifetime. We know today that nearly 20% of human beings who experience trauma can develop post-traumatic stress disorder, which can paralyze their lives and their families and can place them in constant state of anxiety and fear. The prevalence of PTSD is even higher in circumstances where a person is placed repeatedly in a fearful state, such as those living in Iran. Large number of Iranians are suffering from PTSD, which is paralyzing our families and communities and inhibiting their empowerment. Psychologists and anthropologists in the 20th century recognize that rituals, and particularly celebrations, are tremendous and powerful tools to help families and societies overcome fear and pain.
If Martin Luther King Jr. were here and wanted to talk about Iran and its future, he would have said, I have a nightmare, not a dream. I come from Iran, the land of freedom before speech, but not freedom after speech. In Iran, you are free not to think ill of the powers that be. You are free not to have fun. You are free not to criticize the regime. You are free not to be anything but a devoted Shiite who who does not question religious authority. Basically, you are free not to be free. When water scarcity hits communities, human rights is one of the very first victims. Many lives will be lost, not only to drought, but to violence. The Islamic regime of Iran supported Assad and massacred many of those Syrian victims of bad water governance. And today, the Revolutionary Guards are victimizing Iranian farmers and peasants who have no choice but to migrate to bigger cities and later seek asylum beyond Iranian borders.
When you're born in an environment with certain limitations, you will get used to it and believe that it is the only correct way. The bird in the cage views the birds flying outside as those who have gone crazy. This systematic replacement of population must be combined with a developmental plan to keep public from going astray. The regime was caught off guard with the Green Movement, all due to the effect of technological revolution in the world. The Islamic think tanks soon had a developmental plan in hand, which has been implemented. The result is that today we witness the youth, the young men and young women, support the regime. They also have made everyone to believe that there are two political poles of moderates and hardliners within the Islamic in Iran. Let me underline the Islamic part. If you review ideological-based regimes of past and current century, you will notice that there never can be more than one side. So the notion of having two political opposing entities under Islamic system is absurd, especially when there is a supreme power. In fact, having a supreme power supports the argument that there are no two sides, but all are on one side with different facade.
Iran has been involved in acts of international terrorism that has targeted the United States, and it continues to support Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations that are looking to attack U.S. targets. Some of these organizations are actually located in neighboring Latin American countries. It has also been financing Shia institutions in the United States that are engaging in exactly the sort of disinformation and that we have long been witnessing within other Sunni organizations such as the Muslim Brotherhood. It has acted to shut down voices of anyone who would criticize its activities. It has successfully utilized tactics of divide and conquer, not only to divide the opposition within its own territories, to make sure to put the main population against those living in the peripheral territories, the mostly Farsi population against the ethnic minorities, the Muslim populations against the religious groups, other religious groups, but it has done the same thing with the opposition in the United States. It has funded and supported organizations that have gained the attention of the U.S. government.
The mainstream media keep telling us that there are two sides in Iran's politics, the hardliners and the moderates. Based on that assumption, the media keep insisting that we must help Iran democratize by supporting the moderates against the hardliners. What they imply is that the regime is divided, with each faction representing a fundamentally different set of values. But that is only a gross lie that we have been fed for the past 2 decades. Truth is, the Iranian regime is completely united when it comes to widespread corruption, international terrorism, and universal disregard of human rights and democratic values. As such, investing in the internal process of the Iranian regime, like its so-called elections, in hopes that those processes will gradually reform the regime and make it democratized, is absolutely unrealistic. We must be frank with ourselves and avoid wishful thinking. If we want change in Iran, we must actively bring it about instead of just waiting for it to happen. And that won't happen unless the Islamist regime is ousted.
I would like to emphasize the point that as long as Islamic Republic of Iran exists with their dictatorial religious constitution and mandates intact, there will never be peace in the Middle East and elsewhere. Suggestions for removing this cancerous menace are as follows. Number one, support Iran's civil society, those who seek human rights, secularism, and democracy. Number two, support and unify all opposition groups to set a united front. No matter how fragmented they are all sharing the common belief of replacing the Islamic Republic of Iran with the democratic and secular states. Number three, sanction all individuals and their families and within the regime's oligarchy. Freeze their foreign assets, travel bans, and importantly, send all such individuals, many who are sleeping cells, according to the regime's own revealed documents, back to Iran. And finally, number four, war is not a solution, but supporting Iran's civil society is the key to bringing down one of the most dangerous religious fanatic regimes in our time.
If the new U.S. administration continues with past policy towards Iran and yields to Islamic regime's numerous apologists and lobbyists, we can be assured that the big jihadi war is imminent and in not such a distant future. The new U.S. administration recently decided to revisit the U.S. policy towards Islamic regime, a decision that I applaud with the hopes that very soon the United States will stop all direct and indirect support of this terrorist regime and starts a clear campaign of providing its moral support for the Iranian people. I believe that by discarding its appeasement policy towards IRI, the US and its allies will set the stage for the Islamic regime to become weaker and weaker every day, and to eventually be replaced by a secular and democratic government by the efforts of the people of Iran themselves.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is one of my first oil paintings created in January 2014. My motive behind this imagery as a young youth was to release any inner grief I had for Iran and its people. Painting was the only option I had because I felt, and still feel to this day, powerless to help my country. Many interpret the painting as the lack of women's rights in Iran. However, there is more meaning hidden within the imagery. The shape of the Iran map in the background is like a tear in the space-time continuum, connecting the figure and another place with the Azadi Tower. The figure is me and the place is Tehran, and it shows how much I wish I could go back there again, which I feel is impossible. Green, white and red is the order of the flag colors starting from the top. However, by painting the color order upside down, I wanted to show the idea of bloodshed and evil overpowering the peace and freedom in Iran. Of course, the red sky can be seen as destruction, and this is because of the dictatorship in Iran. And with the Azadi Tower, meaning the Freedom Tower, below the red sky, represents the fact that Iran is no longer a place of freedom for its people. The iron bars signify this also. At a young age, coming to a strange and unwelcoming place, unable to go back home, are the reasons for the ropes and constraints within the imagery. This is reinforced by the presence of the corpse-like hands reaching out behind the figure. To many, the eyes are the window to the soul. to me, is the hair, and the pulling of the hair mainly shows the lack of freedom and choice the Iranian people have in their lives. The figure screaming not only shows my deepest pain, but also the voices of the Iranian people, including the followers of the Baha'i faith, screaming for help. However, they can't be heard by the outer world due to punishment suppressed upon them by the government. At the bottom left, where the figure's hand is reaching, is the year 1978, the beginning of the afflictions and distress. Shah Pahlavi's signature can be seen breaching out of the broken bars, and this is because, to this day, many Iranians, inside or outside of Iran, still remember and have him within their hearts for his efforts in trying to build a better future for Iran. Finally, but most importantly, the butterfly over the candle is a significant aspect to the painting, as it represents hope that the majority of us have for the betterment of Iran, which with your support is possible. Thank you for listening.